What's good? It's your boy Fanon. Man, Golden Boy Promotions and Canelo Alvarez have a major storm on their hands with this Canelo Alvarez testing positive. There was a series of tweets that came out or posts by Dan Raphael of ESPN over the last day. Shout out to the Boxing Clinic and more, man. I was listening to his channel earlier this afternoon, and he did a really great breakdown of that. But then Dante's Boxing Nation also put something out this evening, and it just seems like the wheels are falling off this thing, this Gennady Golovkin Canelo Alvarez fight. And honestly, man, I think that it's the right thing. I'm glad that the wheels are falling off of him, and they should, because the way that the WBA and the WBC handled it with Golden Boy and just kind of trying to sweep this under the rug, it's not working. So, but before I get to that, I'm going to do a live stream, probably the last one of the day, might be right after I do this video, talk about this subject, and also another video that I'm going to do about some things that Eddie Hearn said. And the best way to have the conversations real time is to be in the live streams. Live streams are growing, still very mature audience. It's a troll-free zone, so you feel free to come by, listen to it, and share your thoughts and opinions with people, with myself and the other people that are in the chat. But the best way to know about them when they're coming up is to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you know when they're going to happen. Now, let me read these series of tweets from Dan Raphael, and then I'll cover them. Those who say Canelo's hearing on April 10th with the Nevada Commission is just for show, you have no idea what you're talking about. Canelo GGG 2 is in serious jeopardy. Remember, the same Nevada Commission declined to license Mike Tyson years ago and sent the fight with Lennox Lewis, the biggest in boxing history at the time, elsewhere. Another exhibit of how much in jeopardy Gennady Golovkin 2 is of being canceled. Fathom Events, which will distribute the pay-per-view in movie theaters across the United States, as it has been for several of Canelo fights, is no longer listed in its schedule and has removed all material from the fight from its website. If the fight is canceled, which it very well might be, there is nobody to blame whatsoever except for Canelo and his trainers. Anyone who doubts that the Canelo Gennady Golovkin 2 isn't in serious jeopardy of being canceled due to Canelo's 2 failed PED tests, I offer just one exhibit. HBO didn't use it Saturday, Dillian White Lucas Brown fight telecast to promote the pay-per-view, and also left it off its upcoming calendar of events. This is serious, folks. I asked HBO spokesman Ron Stallone about it. When a fighter is temporarily suspended, it's best to pause the programming promotion and resume when all is settled. The last one is, if Canelo GGG rematch is canceled because the Nevada Commission extends its suspension of Canelo, GGG promoter Tom Loeffler told me the other day that the GGG still intends to fight on May 5th in Las Vegas. Whatever the commission does, Gennady would still fight May 5th if Canelo was out. He said, if for some reason it's not against Canelo, we'll figure out the best course of action at the time, but he is still training to fight on May 5th. So there you have it. You have that, just to rehash, one, Fathom, the distributor, basically the two main fight distributors for them have pulled this fight off of their schedule and are not promoting it at the moment. That being Fathom, make sure I got that right, Fathom Events, and also HBO. And HBO didn't advertise it in the show for Dillian White and Lucas Brown. So probably I don't know what difference that'll make. Maybe the 400,000 people or so that watched it didn't get to see that fight publicized. But it is what it is, and this is the right thing. Now, I do say that once Nevada State Athletic Commission suspended him, that is the right move to hold off on promoting the fight, because you can't promote a fight if you don't know that the fight is going to take place. And a lot of people left on my comment section, say temporarily suspended, but it is suspended. I mean, most suspensions are temporary. He didn't get banned, right? He got suspended, but it is a suspension, so it would make sense that these things would happen. Now, the most interesting thing for me, though, and the one I ain't crying any tears over, is Golden Boy Promotions and what this will do, what the effect on this could be for Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions. Because for the most part, man, they've been riding. They've been riding on Canelo. Canelo's is really the cat that's holding up that show over there. Now they've got some other fighters that are coming up, like Ryan Garcia, who's a ways off, right? You got some older veteran fighters like Lucas Matisse, but that's about it, man. Canelo Alvarez is pretty much holding up all the star power for HBO, and I'm not sure what this will do, even if they allow the fight to go on. I think this is just really going to taint. This is going to taint Canelo Alvarez's reputation for the remainder of his career, because even if it winds up being correct, and my understanding also is that Juan Manuel Marquez gave an interview, kind of going off on Gennady Golovkin and telling Gennady Golovkin, shut your mouth, let the Nevada State Athletic Commission do their job, let them do the investigation and see if it's a case where it's tainted meat or it's not, or what the circumstance is. But just the kind of getting on Gennady Golovkin for the basically accusing Canelo Alvarez of having been in drugs before the first fight and all that stuff. I personally think that's unfair, because he didn't test positive in the first fight. He tested positive in this one. And it is reasonable that people would extend that forever, backwards and say, oh, well, we know that he got caught on steroids for this one, so he must have been on it for the last one. That may or may not be true. But, in the world we live in, sometimes it's what rumor becomes truth. Rumor becomes truth. And you have even people like Eddie Hearn saying that, he was suspicious of Canelo Alvarez leading into the first fight and what he looked like on the scale the first time. So if you had to put a gun to his head, he would say that he thought Canelo Alvarez was cheating. So now that for Eddie Hearn is a little bit of what do you call it? He's got a horse in that. He's got a horse in that race. You know what I mean? Or he's got a dog in that fight in Daniel Jacobs, who could wind up being a big beneficiary of this fight if he get it canceled, because he very well might be the replacement for Canelo Alvarez. And I doubt that it would be on a pay-per-view, but it would be a chance for Daniel Jacobs to get a shot at three of the belts, if it's not the case that Canelo Alvarez fights or that Gennady Golovkin fights Billy Joe Saunders, right, and goes for to unify all four belts and what have you. But this has just been a real crazy situation, man, and I don't feel sorry for Oscar De La Hoya at all. Not with the way this cat has behaved, not with the over, man, god dog, man. This could be a real big. This has got to be a real big nightmare for Oscar De La Hoya, whose organization's star power is just, it's hanging on with a thread, hanging on by a thread. But HBO's doing the right thing, and the Nevada State Athletic Commission is doing the right thing. They should. The suspension is the right move. And honestly, man, it's a suspension that if they had not suspended him and if they didn't take this action, those bodies would have just, they would have given up. They absolutely positively would have given up their credibility. Now, I haven't heard HBO because I didn't watch HBO's telecast of the fight, so I didn't hear whether they said anything about it or not. So I can't say whether they spoke about it one way or the other. And I'm still leaning towards this fight happening. I know what Dan Raphael is talking about as far as Mike Tyson, the Nevada State Athletic Commission having revoked the license or refused to give Mike Tyson a license to fight for the what is it called, for the Lennox Lewis, for the Lennox Lewis fight. But I think that came after. I do think that came after all that kind of craziness that took place with Evander Holyfield. And so the fact that he wouldn't let them do that, they wouldn't. I mean, I think they might have been worried about some mental issues or something with Mike Tyson. I know that Mike Tyson, the ear biting incident was in '97, and Lennox Lewis's fight was until 2002. And also he fought 2 other times in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand in 1999. But after that, he never fought in Las Vegas again. And I'm thinking maybe that has something to do with all the that they thought that the dude might do something in the ring that was, out of sorts. And also that was towards the tail end of Mike Tyson's career. I still think that this fight is going to go on. I wouldn't be, but with the pressure building up, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't. But if it didn't go on, that would be the best thing for the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and that would be the best thing for honestly, and would force the WBA and the WBC. It would have forced their hands, because honestly, should have been the ones to have done this. When they came out and said that they thought that Canelo Alvarez was innocent, and they just proclaimed him innocent straight out of the gate. How can you know that unless you do a really thorough investigation, unless you go and you've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and made sure that not only could you say that Canelo Alvarez was innocent, that you could substantiate your claim beyond something where, beyond just, some cursory examination of it, and your belief that Canelo Alvarez had passed 20 other tests before that, and these are the only 2 times that he failed it. That just wasn't going to cut. That's just not going to cut mustard, man. That's not going to do it. Now, Gennady Golovkin, on the other hand, man, Gennady Golovkin just talked himself out of a lot of money. He just talked himself out of a lot of money. And I don't understand, honestly, I don't understand why he would have done it, why he did it like that. Now, I don't think that Gennady Golovkin is the reason why all this pressure got on him, just because Gennady Golovkin said that. This is something that should have happened if Gennady Golovkin said it or not. But the fact that Gennady Golovkin would call him a cheater, go all out of whack on him, accuse him of having done it in the fight before. What's the rationale of doing all that if at the end of the day you still want to fight him? Right? And now you might not have the opportunity to fight him. And now you really have to take a fight that might be more risky, or definitely as risky. But if he's going to fight Danny Jacobs, that's every bit as risky for a lot less money. But hey, like I said in many other instances, I'm not going to be the guy's accountant. But it's, truth be told, he talked himself out of a lot of money, man. And so what does this mean for the welterweight division? For the middleweight division? I could see if they cancel a fight, then what kind of suspension are they going to put Canelo Alvarez on? Canelo Alvarez is no longer going to be will he be? I'm not even sure if he's going to really continue to be the big main cash fighter type of guy when you take that big a hit to your reputation. I haven't, not speaking Spanish, I can't say what they're saying about it in Mexico and what his supporters are saying about it. I've heard, some channels talking about it, thinking he's getting the raw deal, thinking that, yeah, it is it is the meat in Mexico and that he shouldn't be held He shouldn't be held to blame when, right, the whole rigmarole, right? But like Jamal Charlo said, and man, that's another thing. Jamal Charlo in his conversation he was having this morning was acting like the fight's not going on. Jamal Charlo's like, look, Gennady Golovkin, you know, your man ate bad meat. Your man Canelo ate bad meat, so he ain't around no more. You got to come on fight me. You can come get with me. I'm your mandatory. So if he's his mandatory, that's a lot more risk, in my opinion, than Canelo Alvarez is. But I'm wondering if Jamal Charlo might have heard anything about this, man, because Jamal Charlo was in that conversation he had when he was going off on man, because he was going off on a tirade on a lot of people. He was going off on Adrian Bronner. He was going off on Gervonta Miller and some shit that was absolutely, my man, it was absolutely hilarious. Talking about how he would pull up Gervonta Davis by the nostrils. Calling Adrian Bronner a phony fake Mayweathers and showing that little punch routine saying, man, can't nobody but Floyd Mayweather whoop anybody doing this nonsense. But in the midst of those two rants, man, he went off about Gennady Golovkin. And he was pretty much saying that Gennady Golovkin didn't have Canelo Alvarez. And so maybe, man, I didn't see this coming. I didn't see this amount of heat coming from it. I was calling for this type of heat coming from it because it should be a lot of heat on it. But, hey, man, maybe we're in a situation now where, you know, these guys are trying to prove that, you know, that money isn't everything. And they're not willing to, you know, just create a type of situation where they completely lose their credibility because they let something fly. And then they're just going to have this. If they had let this fight, if they did not suspend Canelo Alvarez, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, right? Because HBO, I'm not crediting with anything. They're just trying not to sell a product. To me, it sounds like they're trying not to sell a product that they don't know is going to be available to sell. I think it would be a lot bigger thing if HBO stepped out and said, you know, we're not going to televise this fight because we believe that Canelo Alvarez, either through his either by being either purposefully trying to break the rules or by just gross negligence, right? We believe that we cannot allow somebody to fight on our network who we believe may be entering the ring under the benefiting from the use of performance enhancing drugs. If HBO had taken that type of position, then I would say, man, you know, my hat's off to go for HBO for that. And obviously showing a concern for fighter safety and all, you know, and all. And they stood by principle, and you got to respect that, you know. But, you know, I'll tell you who didn't stand by principle. Not because you expect him to, Oscar De La Hoya, man. But, I mean, that's this guy. He's supposed to do that. But, you know, it is what it is, man. It's going to be what it's going to be. It's honestly, man, nothing that I really care too much about one way or the other. I think everybody in this situation is already tainted to a large degree. The WBC is declaring the guy to be innocent right off the bat. That's kind of foul because we know they didn't have enough time to really do the test. And the WBC had just kissed and made up with Canelo Alvarez 10 days after it happened, right? So, and they're going to stand by Canelo Alvarez regardless, even if Canelo Alvarez got a fight in Mexico City, you know. They'll stand by him. The WBA, same thing. The WBA to do this with Canelo Alvarez after they snatched Luis Ortiz #1 position, mandatory position for the WBA to fight Anthony Joshua after he tested positive for a masking agent where his doctor said that it was for high blood pressure and let him know that that doctor is the one that prescribed it. And then the WBC just fined him and didn't suspend him, but the WBA suspends him. So the WBA is looking shady for that treatment. The WBC is looking shady, and you know Canelo's looking irresponsible and shady. Like if you got that much money, what are you doing eating meat, street meat? You know what I mean? And then Gennady Golovkin jumping up on his high hog, talking about how this guy's cheating, but yet and still he wants to fight and he wants the money. So, it is what it is, man. We'll see whether this fight is called off or not. It's a big, gigantic cluster bomb, and Oscar De La Hoya's got to be sitting there thinking, God, dog, man, what's going on with my company, man? Because it's his biggest stars in jeopardy. With that, I'm out. Peace.